when you're watching the Holdovers. So, when this movie's trailer came out, I really thought it was cool. I thought it was going to be a good movie. I enjoyed the premise of it. I enjoyed the premise of like what happens to those kids that have nowhere to go for Christmas, for the holidays, right? Or Thanksgiving or whatever. And I was kind of like, oh, I never really thought about that because, I never went to boarding school or, I've never been in that situation. So I was like, oh, damn, that's gotta be really hard. That's gotta be really tough. So I thought that was an interesting premise. And I like the idea of like this teacher getting stuck with this kid or these kids and having to kind of build a relationship with them because like they have nobody else, you know what I mean? And I thought that was really I thought that was a really good idea. I also liked the trailer was really good because it showed me the kind of like the type of movie they were making, like the aesthetic of it. It was really old school, and I liked that. It was old school. I didn't know if it was going to be like a period piece or modern day with like kind of a old school nostalgic feel to it. I thought that maybe it would be like an artistic choice of like it's in the modern day, but it feels like it's old school, so that way it looks like it's classic cinema and like old school in that old school style, but it's in the modern day. And I maybe they said it was a period piece in the trailer. I don't remember at the time, but I just remember I first saw it and I was like that looks like a good movie, and I feel like it could be it could have the right balance of like emotional and comedic. And also Paul Giamatti's in the movie, and I remember Paul Giamatti from Big Fat Liar when he was all blue, and I think he's hilarious. He's a really good actor, and I was like, he's in this movie? Oh yeah, I got to go see him. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, last year or whenever the movie came out, I missed out. I didn't go see it in theaters, which, you know what I mean? Now after having watched it, I was like, oh man, that sucks, but what are you gonna do? You can't roll it back. And sometimes you're just like, you know what, you can't go see everything. You know what I mean? But the movie was really great nonetheless. And the reason I really enjoyed the premise of this movie, I also thought that I knew that the acting was going to be good because like it got nominated for a bunch of awards. Everybody really liked this movie, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna take all that much into it, you know what I mean? But as soon as the movie started, or they set up all of the things, they introduce us to Paul Giamatti as the teacher, they introduce us to the students and like what their lives are like and what's going on with them. And after all of that, I kind of was like, all right, we're getting into it. I feel, you know what I mean? I'm ready for the good stuff. And I just have to say, I like this movie because it was so different compared to what I expected it to be. I'm not gonna lie. I think I kind of wanted like a Disney version of it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know maybe like a Pixar-ish kind of like heartfelt movie sort of a vibe, you know what I mean? But instead it gave me more of like more of a realistic view of like people that would be in that same situation. You know what I mean? I don't think I would really. There's certain ways to like tell a story, and this one felt more realistic to me than what I expected. I expected more of like a heartfelt, fairy tale-ish version of the way it came out. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm trying to say it's like I was expecting a lot more cute moments. Not that they don't have it. There's plenty of heartfelt moments and moments of connection, but I think I was expecting just a little bit more of that. But this movie was amazing nonetheless. So essentially, the premise is, as I said, there is a teacher, Paul Giamatti, who has to stay over the holidays of Christmas until like New Year's, until like the start of the new semester. He has to babysit, or he has to take care of the students that have nowhere else to go for Christmas. So it turns out it was like just four students, and then a fifth student has to stay because his parents, well, his mom in particular, she just got married. She has been wanting to go on a honeymoon, and essentially she's like, she married rich, and she wants to like please her husband. So she's like, I want some one-on-one time with the new husband. You're going to have to stay behind for Christmas so that way we can have some alone time. And that's essentially what I got out of it. And so the other kid gets stuck there, and that's where we are. And then we kind of see basically their whole relationship to each other. We kind of see that there are younger kids there. The teenagers are like squabbling amongst each other. And it just, you know, I really enjoyed the beginning of the movie when it was all five of the boys and then the teacher, and they all had to like find a way to coexist. But then this was a particularly brutal part of the movie where one of the rich kids' father comes in on a helicopter. Like, he comes in on a helicopter, he lands, and he goes there to pick up his son. And so the way that the kid describes it is like he was arguing with his father about cutting his hair or not, and because he didn't cut his hair, he was basically a holdover. He was going to stay at the school, and he wasn't going to go to Christmas if he didn't cut his hair or whatever. So then, you know, his dad comes over on the helicopter, and he's like, "Look, guys, we're getting out of here. We're gonna be A-okay. You know what I mean? We're all gonna get to go on this ski trip together." And so, all of the kids' parents, or you know, relatives or whoever, they essentially have to sign off in order for the kids to go on a trip. They all have to be like, well, if the parents answer, then they can go on the trip, and then they can all go skiing and have fun and have an adventure and whatnot. And so the kid that got left there by his mom, they can't contact his mom or the stepfather or whoever, and he's stuck there, and the other kids leave him. And I was like, that was the most heartbreaking scene. That was the most brutal part of it all, is that like it was all five of them struggling together, and now the other four just leave him. You know, they abandon him, and he gets stuck with the teacher. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you know. And what's great about what Paul Giamatti does as the teacher is when you see him interacting with the kids, or like when you see him teaching, he's very, I mean, I wouldn't want him as a teacher. I don't like him all that much as the teacher, or really as a person. Although I do understand him. You know, I understand his intellect. I understand his traditional style of doing things. I don't, quote unquote, you know, I don't think he's wrong for choosing that style, because it's very, I think it's a lot more, what's it called? Not traditional. It's kind of like well, traditional is the right word, but I mean, he's doing it for the right reasons. You know, he's sticking to his morals and what he thinks is right, and in the long run, I don't think it makes him all that bad. It just makes him so boring and uptight, and there's no room to be loose or to have fun, you know what I'm saying? And I thought that the way that they introduced him at the beginning was going to eventually mellow him out, you know what I mean? Or find a way to do a 180. You know what I mean? He does a complete change. He becomes this more fun and cool person. You know what I mean? And there's parts of that in there, but there's more so like he stays the same but is different a little bit. And I thought that was really good. But anyways, the one kid gets stuck behind, and then he gets upset, and he's like, I don't care about you. You don't care about me. Let's just stay out of each other's way, and I don't want to be a part of this. And they basically run around the whole school chasing each other, and the kid like dislocates his shoulder doing like some crazy trick. He gets taken to the hospital, and he's essentially like, you know, he doesn't want to get he dislocates his shoulder. They take him to the hospital, or the teacher takes him, Paul Giamatti takes him to the hospital, and he's essentially going to have to contact his parents now for like insurance purposes, and then the teacher's going to lose his job, and, you know, everything's going to be a big mess. But the kid is like, he lies. He squirms his way out of there, and he's just like, listen, I just want to have a special day with my uncle. He's talking about Paul Giamatti. He's like, and I'm really sorry. You know, can we just skip the insurance thing and just help me out here? And it works. You know what I mean? Nobody gets in trouble. Everybody gets to go home safe and sound, and they pop his shoulder back in, and I was like, ooh, that was awful. Now, he gets his shoulder put back into place, and then he gets like a little armrest or whatever, and he's good to go. So then, I think they go somewhere for lunch, or they go somewhere for dinner instead of like doing something else, and they meet up with like this woman who works at a bar or whatever, and they have like a cheeseburger or whatever, and they get invited to this Christmas party, and then they go back to doing whatever. They go back to the school. And so they go back to the school, and now there's kind of like talk in the air about, oh, the lunch lady's also there. She's grieving her son who went to Vietnam, and essentially she's dealing with the grief of like letting go of her kid, letting go of, you know, her old life. And it's really sad when you see it, and when you see her kind of break down. But long story short, she accepts it, and she learns to put her love into the people that are still around in her life and are a part of her, you know, so she doesn't have to hold on anymore. So anyways, they're talking about the party, and now everybody's like getting all spruced up. Everybody's getting all ready to go to this Christmas party. And if I know a Christmas party, it's not going to be like, you know, they're making it feel like this big deal, like this big, larger than life thing. And I just remember watching that, and I was just like, it's pretty cute that they're all getting like looking their best just so they can go into some person's house and, you know, not even really do anything crazy. They're just like in there eating like cookies or like doing some other stuff. Like, I didn't think it was like that big of a deal. But they go to the Christmas party, and we see Paul Giamatti kind of like, you know, he's awkward. He's, you know, he has like this way of talking that's like very, I don't know what he's just very strict and uptight, and he's like kind of weird, you know what I mean? He just like, he's not the best at like social things, so he's like, eh. And then we see the lunch lady at the party, and she's kind of like taking over. She gets like a little tipsy, a little drunk. She starts taking over the music, and she starts having a breakdown and starts crying and like, oh man, I'm having a hard time grieving my son's death, and he's not here to be with me and not here to go to college or to do anything or be anyone. And she's just like having a total mental, her emotional state is not the best. And then the kid is off kissing like the niece of the woman who invited them. Like he's having a pretty good time. Like he's getting it in, you know what I mean? He's young and exciting and fun and nice, and he's a good kid, you know what I mean? And like I want to see him flourish. I want to, I'm rooting for this kid. I'm like, oh yeah, dude, this guy's really cool, you know what I mean? I like him. I was like, he's a good guy, he's got problems or whatever. He's a little bit of a troublemaker or whatever, but he's a good kid at the end of the day. So I was just kind of like, I was happy for him that he was getting some, you know what I mean? That he was actually like having a pretty good time. And so eventually the lunch lady starts crying, and then they're like, we're going to leave. And then the kid and the teacher are arguing back and forth about her. He's like, well, we'll go drop her off at the school, and then we'll come right back here and come back to the party. You know what I mean? And then Paul Giamatti says this really great thing. He's like, are you out of your mind? This woman is bereft and, and suffering right here. And all you can think about is going back to that party. Is like, you know what I mean? Can't you think of anything outside of yourself? And then the lunch lady's like, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. He's like, see, she doesn't want us to be here. And then they get into this argument and dispute about like, the kid's like, I've been having a really good time. Like this is the first good thing that's ever happened. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know why we can't just come back or why we can't enjoy it. And then the teacher's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. If you wanted like a real Christmas, you should have been with your family. You should have been with them. You know what I mean? But nobody wants you, and I don't want to look after you either. You know what I mean? It's like, I wish you got taken away on that helicopter and we didn't have to be here. So that way all of this, da 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 da. And then the kid is like, my father's dead. And then everybody goes silent, and then he walks away. And then he's like, just give me the car keys. I'm driving. He walks away, driving to the car. And then the lunch lady's like, you don't tell a kid on Christmas that you don't want him and that his parents don't want him. And she's like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? It's like, what's going on? And I thought that was going to be like a big turning moment for him, like where he was going to actually show like empathy and kindness and be like, darn it, I did mess up. What is wrong with me? What happened to my kindness? What happened to my empathy, my ability to care for other people, and including the kids, including these teenagers, And so I thought that was going to be a big like moment, and I guess it did have an impact on him. It was just that like, darn, it was just a little bit. I wanted to hold on to that feeling a little longer, but it moved on to the next scene. And I think it was like, obviously because he said some hurtful things and they went through what they went through. He's like, all right, everybody, it's Christmas. Let me see what I can do to sprucing up the holiday. So he gets like a Christmas tree. He gets like some decorations and whatnot. He gets like some presents and stuff. Like he tries to do something nice for Christmas. And he's like, whatever your heart's desire is, I will see to it that I can make it happen. And the kid is like, okay, for Christmas, I want to go to Boston. And then the teacher's like, blah, blah, blah. Paul Giamatti's like, the Boston? We can't go to Boston. He's like, why not? You said we could do anything. And then the lunch lady's like, yeah, you said we could do anything. And then he was like, ugh. fine, I guess we could take an academic field trip. That would be in my power. And they're like, all right, cool. So they're going to Boston because the lunch lady has her sister over there who's pregnant that she wants to go see. And the kid wants to go to Boston to ice skate and take on the town and look around and see the sights and whatnot. And the teacher's gonna take him to like museums to look at stuff and whatever. So that was essentially the whole plan. That was the idea. And they go over there, they drop the lunch lady off, and then they have Paul Giamatti and the kid start going to museums and go to the ice rink, and they talk to each other, you know what I mean? What is it? He says something along the lines of like, because he teaches history, ancient history or whatever, and he was kind of saying to the boy, he was like, you see, people think that they invented all of the feelings that they've ever had as is all brand new. But there's nothing that hasn't been felt before. There's no feeling out there that has ever transpired that hasn't been there before. Lust, loss, grieving, love, violence, hatred, right? Like envy, like all of these things have been in humanity and history for forever. You know, nothing we experience in this life is brand new. It's served in a different way. You know what I mean? It's like right now we have the internet and social media and all this other stuff, and it's like before and those create all kinds of feelings of like hatred and love and lust and kind of all of these social interactions that we think are brand new, or at least we experience and it's new to us, but it's not anything different compared to like, soldiers lusting for women in a faraway land, or loving their kids, or dying in battle, or all of this other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like it's all comparable. You can see in history that there have been stories about romance and stories about vengeance and stories about dying and dealing with insecurities and anxiety. Like all of that is well and within history, and learning about it allows us to learn more about the present day, learn about like who people are and who they kind of represent. You know what I'm saying? Like they're kind of like, oh yeah, this person is like this and that person is like that. You know what I mean? So he makes a good argument for studying history. And I already knew that. I kind of already had those feelings about history and stuff. But I don't know. There's just something about learning about our past failures that doesn't appeal to me all that much. But he makes a good case for like why history is so important, or why it's like cool to learn about history. So anyways, they're in Boston, and the kid is like ice skating or whatever, and he's ice skating, and then Paul Giamatti and him are walking away, and they're like, wow, that was really good. You're a good ice skater. That was cool. That was fun. They're walking away, and they bump into this guy, and essentially shatters Paul Giamatti's world. And he's kind of like, I haven't seen you since Harvard. How have you been? It's been like, what, 30 years? How are you? He's like, yeah, I've been teaching. I'm doing this and that. And he basically lies. He basically does everything he tells the students not to do. He lies. He makes up some story. He pretends to be someone he's not. Like he was putting on a show. Like it wasn't real or anything. And so the kid plays along. He plays along pretty well. He does a really good job. And so essentially after that whole interaction where Paul Giamatti lies and they walk away, each person step away and they go do their own thing, the kid looks at Paul Giamatti and is like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? He's like, what was that? And then they have like this conversation about like, why'd you lie to that guy? I thought Bart and men don't lie. And he was just like, yeah, well, that guy, essentially Paul Giamatti keeps on revealing more and more and more about his past, about who he used to be, or like his life. You know what I mean? And the more and more he revealed, the more and more interested I was, and the more and more I wanted to learn about him. I felt like Paul Giamatti did such a good job of capturing his depth and his like, he holds in so much, you know what I mean? And it just kind of like shows why he is the way that he is, you know what I mean? It shows why he's so reserved and keeps to himself and does basically doesn't do anything involving other people, you know what I mean? He's so different and he's so traditional, as I say, and he's just like kind of this stick in the mud. And you kind of learn a little bit about like why, you know what I mean? Just a little bit. And why he holds to such old school standards, you know what I mean? So I thought that was cool. So then if that wasn't enough, the boy is like now trying to like run away from Paul Giamatti, or like he's trying to like, listen, I have to go do something right now. And then Paul Giamatti's like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? And so they go to like this hospital or like this mental institution, and he goes to visit his father. When previously he said his father died. So now there's even more depth to this kid. Is like his dad's not dead. He lied because he's actually going through something else. His dad's in this mental institution, and it's just that like he's not around anymore. He's gone. And then all of the fears and doubts and worries about his own life start coming up to the surface, you know, about how maybe he's going to end up in the mental institution and how he isn't going to be able to remember his own son and all this other stuff. And Paul Giamatti and him have a good heart-to-heart. And so I thought they had like a really good moment there. And I definitely wish they had held on to that longer, and that it was like a bigger, more of a long-lasting impact, I guess, or a big change in the story or whatnot. I mean, I guess it is, but it isn't, but it is. I don't know the right way to describe it, but that was a huge moment. And so eventually they go back, you know what I mean? They celebrate New Year's, and then not long after, they the school year begins again, and you know, everything kind of goes back to, well, not exactly, but things go back to the way they were, and Paul Giamatti and the boy, they kind of like have a more of a shared emotional interest in each other. You know, they understand each other better now, and there's real depth. There's a lot more connection between them. And a part of me wanted Paul Giamatti to like not give the kids homework, or like just kind of be like, forget the homework. You know what I mean? Like I kind of wanted him to like soften up a bit and realize that like, you know what? Maybe I am being a little too hard on these kids, or like, you know, these kids are in a way entitled, spoiled brats even, but even they deserve a break every now and then, just like he does, you know, just like the kid does, you know, he deserves a break every now and then. So maybe I should lighten up, but not too much, you know what I mean? But anyways, so now that the school year has begun, you know, everything should be right as rain, hunky-dory. And Then the kid gets sent to the principal's office. And then Paul Giamatti gets asked to the principal's office. And now it's trouble. And so Paul Giamatti gets into the principal's office, and that's where he meets the kid's parents. And the kid's parents tell him that you took our son to see his father, and then that's what this is all about. The father contacted the mother or whoever and was like, I want to come home. You know what I mean? It's like he's confused, he's old, and he's kind of like, he kind of wants his old life back, so to speak. And now everything's all confusing, and she's now newly married, and she doesn't know how to like change things or whatever. So it's like, it's a bit like, it's really difficult. And he just brought up all of these feelings, and the principal's like, this is a family matter, and you had no right to involve yourself in their public thing. And then Paul Giamatti is like, he finally stands up against the principal, stands up to the parents, and is like there for the kid. He's like, you guys were unreachable. I called you multiple times. You didn't answer, okay? He was all alone on Christmas, and the boy wanted to see his father. And then they were like, okay, well, I guess he's going to have to go to military school, and then he's going to have to go into the army. And then he's like, no, that kid is a good kid. You know it. I know it. He's a good kid. It would be a waste to ruin everything that he's done up to this point. I'm the one who encouraged him to go see his father. I took him. I told him to go see him. And now here we are. And so that was such a cool moment. And I really wanted him to let them have it, more of a monologue with it, but it just, again, like I said, it was more realistic. It felt a lot more like that's what those kind of meetings are. Like that's exactly how I would expect like a real life conversation to take place. But instead, I guess I kind of expected more of like a theatrical monologue and dramatization of it. You know what I'm saying? More of like how movies have been doing it. But this one was so realistic, and it felt really good. And that felt really good. So then Paul Giamatti gets fired. He's essentially a free man now. He no longer is tied to that school. He's no longer staying there. You know what I mean? So now he can go live his life and be free. Go do whatever he wants to do. Travel the world and do all of the things that he wants to do. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really cool. He ended it in a completely different place, in a new journey. And I thought that was really exciting for him. And then the kid gets to stay in boarding school, doesn't have to go to the military school or whatever. And I don't know, they all kind of had like this nice impact on each other. You know what I mean? And I thought that was really nice. That was really cool. So, The Holdovers, a good movie, good Christmas movie as well, I think. A good movie overall, but because of the Christmas setting, I think it's a nice holiday movie. But yeah, if you ever get a chance to see it, you know what I mean? Definitely watch it. It's I don't know how long it is. I think it's like 2 hours maybe, but it's really good. And it has like the beats of it are particularly nice. I like the way that it changes up the story, right? It starts off as a school story. Then it starts out like being 5 kids. Then it's just 1 kid. And then it becomes a lot more intimate. And then it becomes about a party. And then it becomes about Christmas. And then it becomes about Boston. And then it becomes about the relationship between the teacher's past and the student, and then the student and his past with his father and his family situation. And then it's about the lunch lady's grief and the feeling of like losing her child to the Vietnam War, and then it's about the times that they live in, and then it's about you know finally going back to normal life, right? New Year's happens, and then it's school again, and then it's like the consequences of their connection, of their bond, and all this other stuff. So I felt like they put so much into it, and it changes so much that it's like you can definitely go back and like rewatch multiple scenes of like that was a new thing that I liked. I liked it when he was challenging each other. They were yelling at each other, and then he dislocates his shoulder and they go to the hospital, and then they come back and they go to a Christmas party, and then they come back and then they go to Boston. And it just feels like this constant shift, this constant change in the story that I really enjoy. And I think you'll like it too if you stay with it, you know what I mean? So definitely a great Christmas movie. I liked it a lot, and I think you will too. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.